Welcome to the Winner's Playbook with Steve and Josh. Disclaimer: the information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Please head to the show notes if you wish to book a free 15-minute call to discuss your personal situation.
Welcome back to the Winner's Playbook. My name's Steve Sloan. I'm here with Josh Lee. This is our podcast on life, money, and success. But before we get into this week's topic, Josh, give me the latest of the weekend.
Yeah, the weekend. Well,
what happened?
It was some big news. Obviously, announced on the last podcast that I'm having my first child, and on the weekend we actually did the gender reveal. So there was obviously 50-50, male, female, and I was always thinking it was going to be a boy, but my wife Alana, she was content in thinking it was going to be a woman, and it turns out we are having a boy, which is pretty stoked with. Haven't thought of the name yet. I know it's not going to be Steve. I know I'm discounting Steve off the rank, but no, it was good. We did a little reveal, got the family over, and now just got to figure out where we're going to be living, which is a topic we're going to be sort of touching on here, because I can actually directly relate to this topic we're going to be talking on Rentvesting very shortly. But Steve, what about your weekend? Did you do anything extravagant over in sunny Adelaide? How was Mother's Day actually? What'd you do?
It was Mother's Day, and so I did the right thing and took my wife to the footy to celebrate Mother's Day. So she got to go to football, which was all about the mother. Which was good, but unfortunately it was a draw with the Brisbane Lions and the Crows, but that's okay.
Was it a good game? Did the wife enjoy the game at least?
Well, she did. She loved it.
Was she watching the game, or where was she?
She may have been at a bar every now and then getting a drink, but probably a little bit more entertaining. But no, she actually said that she'd do the same thing. So I did all right this time. So I got a couple of gifts and yep. But no, mate, it was a good weekend. Nice, relaxed, which I needed it to be, because we've got a big couple of weeks coming for Link. We've got a conference this week that we're putting on for the staff at Trawall Estate, it's called. So that's going to be exciting. Get all the team together and reset for the next 6 months. We're good to go. But on the topic, obviously, you've just had kids or about to have kids, and the younger people coming through. Obviously, the younger generations coming through, that one of the biggest issues is property, I reckon, and it's a constantly talking point, this one, of how to get in the property market, and we see so many issues around this, and lots of discussion between clients and families and their kids and how do we help them, etc. But if we talk about specifically rent vesting, which is a common theme used, first of all, dig into what that actually means, but it is a common strategy people are using to help get into the property market, and you're probably a prime candidate because you've probably done a little bit of this in your past. But what's your take on this, mate? Firstly, what is rent vesting, and secondly, does it work?
Yep. So rent vesting. If you think about your options, you've got just buying your standard home and living in it, which is probably what most people think about when they think about buying property. They think about just buying a home and living in it, because they don't know the better, or their parents told them, when are you going to buy your first home? And that's normally the natural sort of progression people go through in life. Save up so they can buy their first home, get in the first home, and then maybe they end up upgrading down the line and just kind of continue on that cycle. But where rent vesting comes in is kind of a bit of an in-between, because you can buy or you can rent, or you can do rent vesting, which is essentially where, I can use, say, my own situation, because I've been doing this strategy up until now, where you want to live in a particular location, and maybe you're actually priced out of that location because you want to live like in a suburb, close to your office, close to the CBD. You really want the lifestyle, but maybe that's like a $1 million or a multi-million-dollar suburb, and maybe it's your first home, or maybe you can't afford to buy in that location at the moment. So what you instead look at doing is going, okay, well, I want to live in that location. I want that lifestyle. I want to be close to all of the bits and pieces I want to be close to, but all right, I can't afford it. Could I then in fact rent in that area? And if you typically look at what happens on the higher end of the property market in particular, when you start getting over $1 million in terms of values of properties, the rental yields or the return that you're getting on the property doesn't typically keep on going up. So the yield, which is basically the rent as a proportion of the price, as the values of the properties tend to go up, the yield doesn't keep going up in a straight line. It tends to actually sort of plateau off on the more expensive properties. So in those types of situations, and in my own situation, I've done plenty of videos on this where I actually broke down the costs of owning my property that I'm in right now versus renting. And if I was to own that property, it'd be virtually costing me about double as to what it's costing me to then rent that property. But then you got to go the step further and go, okay, all right, so I'm renting in the location where I ideally want to buy, but maybe I just don't want to actually buy there because it's not where I want to live forever. All right, so I'm renting there. To complete the rent vesting strategy, you need to be investing your money as well outside of that. So what I have been doing and what I am doing is I do invest in all, investment portfolios, my regular investments every fortnight, but I've also been proactively buying property over the last couple of years as well. And that's what completes your rent vesting strategy. You rent in the ideal location where you would want to live and buy, but maybe you can't afford it. And because you can't afford it, you still get on the property market, but you buy in a location which is cheaper and what you can afford. That is your stock standard rent vesting scenario in a nutshell. Yeah. Then, you get onto the conversation, well, is rent dead money and so on and so forth. But rent vesting has worked, really well for my situation over the last couple of years. And I can talk about some of the ins and outs of it. But that's basically what a rent vesting strategy is. And I think it is definitely getting more relevant in today's society. I don't know about you, Steve. If you go back 10 years, was anyone talking about rent vesting at all? Or
probably, yeah. Look, they were not to probably definitely not the extent they're doing today. I think nowadays there's just a significantly bigger portion of the population that has to look at this, right? Because of the property prices where they've gone, there's a hell of a lot more people talking about how they're going to buy property, because clearly it's become a lot less affordable than what it was 10 years ago. But yeah, it was still around. It's been I wouldn't say common strategy, but it's always in part of the conversations over the last 10 to 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. But if we talk about the I suppose the advantages and the disadvantages, if we want to go there, and I know you've got a pretty big disadvantage that you can talk to live, but what are the major advantages of this strategy?
Yeah, major advantages. Well, the flexibility in getting into that home that you can't afford. Maybe you can actually rent it because it's going to be a lot cheaper by doing that. So that's obviously a major advantage. Getting to that location that you wanted to be living in, and that was really the big one for us. Was really the location, getting in closer to the office because the drive and traffic. When you're pushing out to those outer suburbs, particularly you're in Melbourne, and I suppose in every state it's going to be very similar. Yeah. That commute time just goes up, and that was genuinely one of the biggest drivers for me around this strategy. Was the lifestyle and location, but it was how much time I was losing traveling every day, and I was nearly losing probably 2 to 2.5 hours on average every single day in my commute in and out of the office. And that's pretty standard here in Melbourne. If you're living in the southeast or you're in the north, wherever you are, and you've got, a 30-40K commute to work, you're going to be looking at a couple of hours at least a day. And the way I then viewed that is okay, well, what's my time worth? Now, all right, I think it's worth X, whatever it may be, $100 an hour, a couple $100 an hour, whatever you want to call it. When I did the numbers on all of that and I looked at what my time was worth, how much time I was losing, I'm virtually losing basically a business day is what I was losing previously for all of that travel, because I was doing, say, 2 to 2.5 hours a day in the car that I was losing. You add that up over the week, there's, say, 8 to 10 hours I was losing in travel. When I weighed that up against what my time was worth and what more I could be doing with that 8 to 10 hours, it was honestly just a complete no-brainer for my situation. So, yeah, the location is a really big one. What other benefits? You can kind of try before you buy with a rent vesting strategy. So it's all right, well, I want to try this home I want to try out this particular location, rather than going out and forking out a huge amount of money, which any property purchase generally is, because you're spending north of $500,000, which is a lot of money. How about you rent in that location for 12 months or 18 months, get a feel for it, and then decide if you then want to buy in that location. So you can kind of try before you buy, as opposed to just buying in the area. And then, it's not easy to transact in property. You want to be buying it and going, oh, don't really like this place. 12 months later, let's head off somewhere else. It's not, you pay stamp duty on going into property. So you lose generally sort of 5 to 7% on your buy and sell costs. So you got to be really careful around that transacting on property side of things. And that's where, again, that rent vesting strategy can work quite well. But all I would say is to be doing the rent vesting strategy, you need to be taking money and still investing. You can't just be renting in the location that you are. You need to be doing something with your time to make it beneficial, or taking your surplus cash flow because you haven't bought and you've got excess income, and looking at buying other property or putting that into an investment portfolio. And it could even be a really good one for like business owners, like for business owners that want to just spend all of their time in their business, and that's where their time is best spent. Well, get a small little apartment where it's just, tiny and self-sufficient, and that's all you need. And then you're just going to be spending all your time in the business anyway. So you don't really need anything fancy at this point in time. And that whole term of delayed gratification sort of comes to mind when you think about that. So that's really the benefits of rent vesting. And I suppose another one before I throw to you, Steve, is if you're rent vesting, the debt that you take on, because you're buying an investment property, you're not living in the property that you purchase, the debt's tax deductible as well. So the debt you're taking on to buy properties, it's all tax deductible. And then, of course, everyone here in Australia absolutely loves negative gearing, which is in essence losing money on your property, but you get a tax break because of it. You get that with a rent vesting strategy. Whereas if you buy a home and live in it, all of that debt is what you would call is bad debt, because it's not tax deductible to you personally. And that can be a big one for a lot of people, particularly in the higher income brackets. So what about any others that you can think of, Steve? Or what about if you get into the drawbacks?
Well, the drawbacks, I think, there's a number of them. I think before we go there, I think touching on your point about, the time you freed up by, doing it, I think that's a big one, and that's going to be different for everyone and different magnitude for everyone. But for business owners and stuff like that, it's a big one, right? And so you can do all the numbers in the world about tax deductions and benefits of X or buying or selling and renting, all that stuff. But if you're going to significantly increase capacity in a role that generates more income,
for sure,
that's probably a game changer, right? Like that's clearly, even just by doing that, you're winning. So I think that's crucial. And I think more and more people need to look at how much time they're going to save by not being in traffic. I reckon, especially in Sydney and Melbourne.
Massive.
Like I live in Adelaide half the week and Melbourne half the week, and when I'm in Melbourne, I choose to not really leave the office anymore because I'm just going to waste so much time in a car. So you've got to really be careful with that now and really consciously make different calls. Disadvantages, I reckon, owning property is obviously cost. That's your first disadvantage. When you have an investment property, you got to deal with tenants, insurances, and issues, and there are always issues. To be honest, I have 3 properties. I'm a bit over the issues, to be honest. And yes, it's a good way to build wealth. Yes, you can leverage up and all that type of jazz, and that's fantastic. But you've got to deal with the crap at the same time, and that can be very frustrating and very costly. I just redid my floor in my townhouse in Melbourne, cost me $10,000. So it's just dead money, right? It's just sure you get a tax deduction, but so what? So that's the first thing. I think your property may not grow. Clearly, that's obviously an issue. So you tie up all that capital if you don't get the capital growth. And you've got a longer term goal to purchase in that area that you want to live in, then you want growth on the properties. If that doesn't happen, that kills your strategy. I think that's a big one. So I think it's just your normal standard issues around property investment at that point, which is no different to anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I can talk to that. The point where you said about like tenant issues, like I've kind of had a lot of different things in this. We're not even halfway through the year yet, and I had one of my properties. The tenant wasn't paying the rent. The tenant, and then you got to go through the normal steps, and you'd be surprised at the protections. They're not really there. Like you as the owner, you can't basically do really anything. And fortunately, the tenant ended up moving on, and it all went well. But I've actually got some clients that went through and did a rent vesting strategy. Within 1 or 2 months, the tenant stopped paying. And no kidding, kicked holes in the walls, started painting half of the house, and they've had to go through all of VCAT and everything else. Fortunately, had some insurance that covered them for all of this, but there is definitely some major risks of doing rent vesting or even just investing in general. But really, the big one, and I'll touch on my own situation, is we've been doing a rent vesting strategy now for the last 2 years, and then lo and behold, obviously we're having our first child, and we actually fortunately started looking at properties and thinking about, all right, maybe we might buy because we're going to have a kid, probably have some more stability and so on. And then at the exact same time, when we started doing all that, we got issued notice to vacate because the landlord where we're living now, the owner, has decided to sell the property, and we have to be out within 2 months.
Yeah.
So think about that. If you're set up in an area location, kids are loving school, everyone's all happy, you know, you get the letter, 2 months, you got to be out. That is a major drawback of, a rentvesting strategy. So I can talk from my own personal experience. When I got hit with that letter come in, I'm like, wow, okay, so 2 months, we have to be out. It's going to auction, and there you go. So
that's the thing, right? Like, because we can talk about making money, saving money, tax deductions, all that stuff, but when it comes to lifestyle and being your whole world just turned on its head like that because a letter in the mail just come.
Yeah.
You got to ask the question: is making money even worth it when you got to do that stuff, right? Or the tax, so it's a real balancing act, and is where conversations have to happen with your advisor and your advisors, and the more conversations around this, the better, because you got to get this balance right. Like it's a balance in life, and it's balancing everything on a daily basis, and the not upsetting the family environment can be quite a big one. I know if that happened to me right now with 2 kids and a wife, and I got issued a letter in the mail, well, there's no amount of money would come into the picture, right? Because your whole world just explodes, and it would just be a tragic event. So I can understand that would be quite painful for you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I appreciate your condolences there, Steve, because it is it's quite painful. But in all honesty, it's where you're at in life, and if you're a single person and you're growing your business or whatever it may be, like you could probably handle that. Like you don't have much to move, and it's quite easy, just in an apartment, get up, maybe you go live with your parents for a period of time, and then you just find something else. But if you've got a family and then the kids and so on, that definitely can make it a lot more difficult to pull off that sort of a strategy. And that's where you got to go into this with your eyes completely open. If you want to do that strategy, it can be a really good one, but you just got to note that you don't have those protections essentially there. Of course, you can't just get kicked out. Like you get a bit of notice and so on, like we have 2 months, but I'm sure that doesn't sound like not much time, because it's not.
No.
And
especially when there's no rentals, right? Like there's no rentals. So
there's a rental crisis going on at the moment, so it's hard to find. And in our own situation, like we were going to buy eventually, but now it's kind of forced our hand, and we're having to buy sooner than we actually anticipated and probably wanted to. We didn't probably want to buy just yet. We're probably going to wait a little bit longer and then purchase. But then obviously kids and then this has ultimately happened, and then that's why it takes you back to having your own home. You don't have any of those headaches whatsoever. You've got pride of ownership. It's your property. If you want to knock down a wall, you can knock down a wall and do what you like with it. Whereas when you're in someone else's home, you got to look after it. You can't just do those bits and pieces, and that pride of ownership and just having that peace of mind. Like you said, I don't know if you can put any sort of amount of money on that, which I'm sure I'll keep everyone in the loop on the podcast as to how that goes over the coming months. Because we got to be out now within just over a month, and hopefully into a new home if everything goes according to the plan. But I think just in closing, that's where it's I think any strategy we do, Steve, it's not for everyone. Like there's no one size fits all with any of what we do, is there?
No, nothing. No, there's definitely no one size fits all. And for the listeners out there, I think it's really important everything we say about a client situation or whatever it may be, it really changes every single client conversation, because everyone's got their own drivers, wishes, wants, and all that type of jazz. So it really is important to note that the strategy that someone talks about may not be the right one for you.
Totally agree, mate. Well, guys, we'll finish it up there. Appreciate everyone listening in. 5 stars on Spotify and Apple if you are getting any value out of this one. And of course, if you do want to come through and chat to any of us and the advisors within our team about, rentvesting, is it right for you, is it not, or any other strategies or whatever you're trying to do in your life and get on track, you can jump onto the website, take your pick of all of the advisors, or if not, just tune into your daily or weekly dose, I should say, of the Winners Playbook. Steve, I'll see you on the next one, mate.
See you, mate. Bye.